No, do not call me anymore. It's none of my business.
Oh, the cops from Steven's visit yesterday. I don't think he likes my coffee. He barely took a sip. Oh shit. It's only Thursday. How am I supposed to record a lecture for the students now? Feeling completely broken. Oh, I'm gonna go nuts if I don't take my pills. I feel like an exhibit here sometimes. It's supposed to rain today. It's for my guests, but they seem to never drink or say anything when they visit me. I borrowed it from Steven. Since Alice died, Steven is the only person I trust. I really need to fix them. It's locked.
Fuck. Where are my meds?
Alright. Now we can go get the camera. It's locked. Oh, this place is starting to look like a garbage dump rather than a storage room. Repairs, repairs. It's best not to touch it if it doesn't work. The cheapest paint rollers from the supermarket. I don't think any colors would change how bleak this place is. I don't even know what this pump is here for. Those are propane and butane gas bottles. Well, I hope I won't forget to press the record button this time. Let's move on straight to our deceased. I'm wondering how the new tripod is going to work. Just frame it properly and... Oh, this should be fine. November 21st, 1991. Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. The autopsy is conducted by Jack Hanman. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always worth having a look at the files before conducting the autopsy. That is where we'll get to making notes on the board. I don't know how it could have worked without this gadget before. No music today. I don't want it to jam me. Well, who do we have here today? Mention the rookie mistakes. Oh yeah, that's right. That's my organ to sensify you for a few issues. First, due to the fact that in the process of revealing and securing forensic traces, interference that changes the primary condition happens. The photographic documentation plays a huge role in the entire process of examination. Then, the body needs to be placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathomorphologist stands on the left-hand side of the body. Third, very rarely but still, the cause of death remains unknown if all the tests come out negative. That's found on the outskirts of a parking lot near a gas station, where he often begged and insistently offered to clean the windows of cars that were leaving the station. The body was found in a dry field drain. The deceased is locally known as Old Toby, homeless and unemployed for at least a couple years. He had gotten into fights, and the body was found at 7 o'clock by Sheriff Matthew Thompson. White male, 76 kilograms, found on the outskirts of a park. The deceased is... The body was... Mention the rookie mistakes. Oh yeah, that's right. That's my organ to sense it. Oh, where are the damn gloves? Now we can get to work. We're going to need the camera. It should be here somewhere. Must have left it in one of the drawers. Let's follow the procedure and prepare photo documentation. We must follow the top-down rule. Luckily, we don't have to take pictures of the clothes this time. We are only focusing on the body. Let's keep in mind it's all about the legibility, not the perfect frame. Before we start searching for traces on the deceased's body, we have to take a main picture that goes in the files. Voila! Now we move on to the next step, trace search. We're going to need better zoom here. More, and that's perfect. Well, you don't have to stand close to be able to smell a strong odor of alcohol and other discharges. There's nothing left to say. Old Toby didn't spare himself. People affected by homelessness most often die from accidents, alcohol abuse, or they freeze to death. Unfortunately, while taking the photos, some entries that could be potentially lethal caught my attention. Let's take a closer look using the magnifying glass. That's something interesting. While making photographic documentation, ecchymosis can be seen on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. We'll come back later to see if everything is all right with the brain. An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. There are frostbite marks all over the deceased's body. Although they are most visible on the tips of his fingers, they can be recognized by the very specific color of the skin. However, the hands tell us much more. By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death. What do we have here? Yeah, the odor can be the result of alcohol intoxication. By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death. The condition of the head tells us it could have been a fatal accident. It could be freezing to death. An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. At this point, that's all I can do based on all traces on the body of the deceased. The inside should tell me much more. Now let's check the level of muscle tension. This will allow us to establish time of death. Let's raise the deceased's hand. And then let go. The stronger the rigor mortis gets, the greater the resistance from the muscles will be. As you can see, the hand falls loose. The rigor mortis has already subsided. We can then assume that the time of death stated in the files is correct. Let's grab a scalpel. You can boldly cut with the scalpel. It won't hurt him no more. We always start with the neck and move down towards the symphysis pubis. The incision should be deep. Next, we separate the skin and prepare to remove the ribs. The adipose tissue has an intense yellow hue. As you probably already guessed, we're going to need the scissors. After removing both cartilage and bone tissues, we are actually interested in two things that you can see at the very first glance. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that have contributed to our Toby's death. Well, once we've got the body ticked off, we can move on to the head. At first glance, the heart looks fine. Let's take the autopsy saw to cut through the skull to cleave it in two. Remember, the skull, not the saw. Anyway, we will start dissecting the brain from the occipital lobe. In this way, the brain's dura mater is slowly revealing itself. After the basic examination, we can see that the cerebral gyri in both brain hemispheres are symmetric and the bumps between them are clear. So far, so good. The hematoma seems to have had no effect on the organ we're examining. Let's check its transection. Moving on to the incision. we can eliminate freezing as the cause of death. The deceased smoked like a chimney. Let's take a closer look. We see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death. Still, let's examine his cross-section. On to the incision now. At this point, we need to test the level of blood alcohol concentration of the deceased. We also collect the fluid from the deceased to determine the level of alcohol concentration in the vitreous. We move on to collecting blood from the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it. Now, we prick the bladder and draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. Keep in mind that you have to set the right time and speed on both knobs before running the centrifuge. Our samples may break into pieces due to the centrifugal force if we set up the wrong coordinates. I myself am terrible with numbers because I suffer from dyscalculia, which is why I always keep the appropriate coordinates at hand. Damn it. If something goes to shit, it's on the way. That's probably the blown fuses again. Hold up, I must have had a flashlight somewhere. And I was hoping to clock out early today.
What was that?
Where did it go? Yeah, it's definitely the fuses. Right goes first, left next. Voila!
Where's that unbearable noise coming from?
Alright, where were we? Oh yeah, the blood alcohol concentration. Well, everything is telling us that the BAC, blood alcohol concentration, is high. Hence the smell we're getting from the deceased. Still, to be 100% sure, I have to send the samples to the lab. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment to conduct a detailed analysis here. Now let's take a closer look at the stomach. As expected, the stomach has no major external damage. In this case, further inspection is no use. We must cut him open. That's interesting. In addition to a large amount of gas and liquid, the stomach also contains small amounts of yellow-grayish food content resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days, or some of the bulk of his stomach had found a way out. Oh, it couldn't have been suffocation, could it? Now we need to focus on the cardiovascular system, especially the heart. We take the organ and look it up and down, carefully. Could that be suffocation? At first glance, the heart looks fine. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that have contributed to our Toby's death. Well, once we've got the body ticked off, we can move on to the head. Let's take the autopsy saw to cut through the skull to cleave it in two. Remember, the skull... Anyway, we will start dissecting the brain from the occipital lobe. In this way, the brain's dura mater is slowly revealing itself. After the basic examination, we can see that the cerebral gyri in both brain hemispheres are symmetric and the bumps between them are clear. So far, so good. The hematoma seems to have had no effect on the organ we're examining. Let's check its transection. Moving on to the incision. Holding a knife with a long, narrow blade in your dominant hand, cut the cranial nerves on both sides, pulling the brain towards you. Remember, just one small fragment examined under the magnifying glass is enough to dispel or confirm our doubts. We then take the fragment of the brain to the tray and, literally and figuratively, go just as I initially suspected. We can rule the fatal accident out as well. Same as we did with the stomach. External inspection didn't tell us anything. Now the scalpel comes into play. While cutting a small organ, such as the trachea, we must perform a precise incision. To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the knife as if it was a... Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've got it. Based on the report and preliminary documentation, it is safe to assume that the deceased passed out after consumption of alcohol and then fell asleep. And now it's all clear. The death was caused by suffocation. It went quite smoothly today. I'm about to get off. In order to bring the chest of our deceased back to its initial state, at least to a small extent, we must take the needle in our hand. We sewed the deceased using the baseball stitch technique. This stitching method is very strong and quick to do. I should probably get to that. I'm coming. That's strange. I'm pretty sure I closed the window.
What the fuck?